It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hello, Susan. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. I'm doing great, thank you.
Now, I know we've talked in great detail over recent weeks about problems within the Republican Party with Tea Partiers and establishment types, butting heads and, hurting the party in the process. But seems that there are perhaps not as public, but there seems to be some problems in the Democrat Party as well?
Yes, it does appear to be so, and could read about it today in the Washington Post. And I also saw an intriguing interview with Mary Madeline and James Carville where they're acknowledging that there are internal battles as well within the Democrat Party. I do think that you have a lot of different dynamics in our country right now. Part of it is we are moving into the information age, and so it's not as easy for the party bosses to keep control of the messaging, and the information is out there. But I also think that we're in a different age now as well, as far as the leadership, and the country is divided 50-50, and then within the parties, I think you have a division on what the vision is for the country. And I think what you're seeing, at least I can see this on the Republican side, there is a disconnect from many of the leaders in the national GOP from the average GOP in our country. And I think you're seeing some of that within the Democrat Party as well.
Well, I guess we've seen this. I mean, the fever pitch was in '08 when the Hillary Clinton side and the Barack Obama side really went at it and it got ugly. But I guess the difference is Democrats seem to come together when there's a nominee or when an issue is finally pushed forward, whereas this sparring in the Republican Party just continues, and then you see this either apathy or non-support when the other person wins. Like when a Tea Party candidate wins a primary fair and square, a lot of times they're just left hung out to dry without support from the establishment.
I think one of the issues right now as well for the Republican Party at the national level, there is no real clear leader of the Republican Party, and that we were much more united under President Bush, and I think the Democrats are benefiting from having a Democrat president in office. But at the same time, as we move toward the next election, you can see that the division is pretty sharp in the Republican Party on who the next nominee is going to be. I think you're also seeing a little bit of that evidencing itself in the Democrat Party as well. There have been some other commentators that I've watched who have said Hillary Clinton is not the nominee that we should put forward. So I think it's something to watch. I think it's something to be aware of. And I do agree with Paul Ryan on this point where he has said that we do need to offer alternatives and not just no. And I do think that he tried to put those alternatives out there, but I think that our Republican leaders need to recognize, at least with their base, that there are some things that we just can't compromise on, and the level of interest in immigration reform among the average Republican is nowhere near at the top of the list like it is for a lot of our GOP leaders. So it's really going to be up to the base to remain engaged and involved and to let their leaders know the issues that they care about and to keep that in line.
Yeah, and those that are technically in leadership positions like John Boehner, I mean, they're not exactly capturing the imagination of the nation or Republicans, your average Republican. Plus, you talk about what's to come down the road. If Hillary ever were the nominee, I guess it's going to depend on who the opponent is, because if you have someone like a Palin or a Cruz who isn't afraid to speak, they'll call someone with such a shoddy record like herself out on Benghazi, out on Whitewater, out on all these other things. Whereas if it's a Christie or a Jeb Bush or, one of these, like a Romney-McCain repeat, they're going to put the kid gloves on again and come out of the good loser, quote unquote, once again.
Let me just put it a little bit in perspective, and it's hard when you haven't been inside the belly of the beast. But I have, and I can see how the inside of this machine works. And the way it works is you go along to get along. And if you don't, then you are pushed out. And I think what we're seeing is the success of candidates more and more like Senator Lee and Senator Cruz, where you may not exactly agree with them, but at least they do have the courage to stand up, and they're not bound by this code. And it exists in the Democrat Party as well as the Republican Party. And I think that hopefully now what we're seeing is more people that are going to get elected into office who aren't afraid to actually do what they campaigned on. Right now we seem to struggle in our party on actually following through on what we've campaigned on.
Well, let's hope so. Susan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin.